And on to the big story of the day. According to research by alcoholrehab.com, there's a general correlation between drug abuse and antisocial disorders. Other factors such as child abuse, neglect and other trauma increases the risk of violent behavior in adults. Now, joining us to talk about the relationship between drugs and violence is Deputy Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services, Professor Hlengiwe Mkhize. We have Mam Thoko Mkhwanazi Xaluva, and also joining us is Ma'am Khan, who is in studio with us. Now, you at home are most welcome to give us a call on 011-542-2186, or you can tweet at ANN7TV. Thanks, ladies, for your time, and much appreciated indeed. I mean, it was just recent reports of a fallen, one could call her a broadcast stalwart, Hope Zinde, whom, according to initial investigations, suffered her demise at the hands of her son. What does this say about the society that we're living in? We'll start with you, Professor Mkhize.
Well, I suppose, of course, one has to start off by really expressing our sorrow about what has happened and just hope the family is coping. But just looking broadly at this issue, some of the, when you talk about alcohol and drug abuse, we're really talking about our social system as to what kind of young people our families are producing today, and what mechanisms do we have in society to assist those who are affected by this social ill to cope. Of course, have we got rehabilitation centers? It opens all sorts of issues, from the etiology up to the point where what kind of support systems are there to help them to come out of the problem.
It's been said that South Africa has become a safe haven for drug lords and syndicate crimes, and one would wonder that if fellow community members are the ones that are peddling the drugs in itself, it's become very accessible. We're told that even children as young as 9 years old have got access to drugs at school level. So, Ma'am Suraya, I mean, where do we even begin to conscientize society that you may do this as a source of income, but it impacts on the community and somebody else's children? Have we just become desensitized to these issues?
Well, I must say the community where I live, and when the women stood up and we collected petitions to go to court to say no to bail drug dealers, it was 6 drug dealers. That was the first time where the judge actually said she'd actually seen a community come together and come to her court. She'd never had protests in her court or situations like that. But it's when social cohesion, when people start working together in society, in communities, and say enough is enough. And the drug dealers have ruined our societies.
Are we losing the battle, Mamto?
I don't think we've waged a very serious battle. So we haven't lost yet. It's just that we need to up our energies and start defending and protecting our children in any way that's possible. Because most of the time, we all know who's selling where and what. And it's when people don't report such things, and when it's too late, then they start saying, no, it's that house that is doing this. So as communities and individuals and families, we should be able to say, so-and-so is doing this. You can go to the police in a very confidential way, because it's the community that needs to stand up now.
But it's also the parents, and more often than not you hear people saying that it's a government issue, why children are disorderly, and the parents having abdicated their responsibility in making sure that they're visible and practical in their approach.
Yeah, I think when we talk parenting is not absolute. So most families, they do their best in ensuring that they transfer the right values, teachings to their children. And some societies, you find that there are cultural practices, especially in rural areas, which promote certain behaviors. But there are risks. Today, for instance, young people are exposed to technology in ways that are unprecedented. and they get exposed to practices. When we talk alcohol and drug abuse, we don't even know what they are exposed to when they are online, and the heroes they see and the strategies they learn about. So families are under tremendous pressure. I know in government there's an interministerial committee chaired by the Minister of Social Development, dedicated, working within the United Nations guidelines on the prevention of alcohol and substance abuse. The big question really is, what do we do? What values can we instill in our young people so that when it's time to make choices, they are strong enough to choose behaviors that will not be self-destructive, but that will promote their growth and help them to be integrated in society and become useful citizens.
Well, Professor, in the absence of role models, who then do young people emulate if there isn't somebody who gives direction and vision as to what a particular family structure represents and what the expectation is of every family member, particularly in the absence of fathers? It is Father's Day today in South Africa, but the thing is, are there adequate role models that the children can emulate? Ma'am Soraya.
I mean, how do we look at family structures? How are family structures operating when you see so much violence against women, when you see so much difficulties that women face in life? You talk about there's a relationship with oneself, with scriptures, with your belief, with your value systems that you have, that you come from. There is a common value amongst all of us as human beings. Yet we harm one another in many ways. Do we blame drugs for it? Do we blame culture? Do we blame the religion for it? Where do we start? What is the bottom line? It's that relationship in that family. What is the kind of relationship between the men and women when we can't see equality, when you see you subjected, and when men have that, they feel they have the power to harm you and hurt you because they have that right, you know.
Is it a sense that we haven't quite mastered the art of what living is about, that it's not just for self, it is really an extension of your nucleus going into the community, going into society and the nation?
I think partly it's that, but also that the definition of family needs to go back to what culturally family was about. The role of uncles, the role of the extended family, and how even if, you know, there's this thing called a single parent, I'm not sure what it is, but even if you are a mother with your children, that there are other male role models, as you were saying, that the children can emulate. Otherwise, the drug lords become their role model, and they emulate what those drug lords are selling. So we need to begin to own our children, to monitor our children. And I think as parents, some of us would say, no, it's the children's rights thing. You know, these children have rights and government has decided we mustn't discipline them. That's running away from your responsibility as a parent. Children have a right to be disciplined. It's their basic right. So we can't hand over our children and hide behind children's rights. We have a responsibility.
I want to just bring it back, the correlation of not only substance abuse to violence in society, the rape culture that we've spoken about extensively, is that as a nation, have we condemned this kind of behavior enough, in the sense that it's unpalatable? It is not something, when a father is present in their children's life, that we need to laud and put him on a pedestal. It's something that is their duty and responsibility to be there. Do you think as a nation we've condemned this whole single parenthood, particularly single motherhood, so much? We almost romanticize the whole notion.
I think some societies is overwhelmed with some of these difficulties. Remember, we come from traditional societies where they didn't have a notion of a single parent, because whether you were married to that family or you were married to somebody, men will take responsibility for their children. That was a sense of pride. They'll make sure that they take them through all cultural practices and so on. But in our modern society, we've almost normalized the situation whereby a woman will spend all her life running after a man, even for simple things like maintenance. So those are some of the modern challenges we have. But you know, I wanted to flag something else. If you have a child with some emotional challenges in society, you know, the big question is, where do you get help from? You know, it's almost like we're in denial. Our school systems is not geared for emotionally, I don't want to say disturbed because that's a strong word. Even if people who have some developmental challenges, let's put it safe like that, who are not coping, who are doing wrong things, who tends to bully others, who are aggressive. And because, you know, there are no immediate possibilities, clinics and staff and caregivers that can intervene. And people, they escalate. Some people, they end up with serious mental disorders, mainly because the society hasn't got sufficient structures where they can access help.
So is the solution early childhood development, as Professor is saying, in that when you detect any worrying behavioral patterns in a child, that needs to be addressed then? Because otherwise it means we're raising broken adults who could perpetually become violent.
I'm so fortunate in the sense that I come from the background of being raised by the family, not just the family, but the neighborhood. Because I had Mrs. Malifi, I had Gotko, I had Mrs. Johnson, I had my mama, I had Apapa, all the women that took the responsibility for raising you. So that's the important part of our culture. When we talk about culture, there's no rape culture. There's a culture in society. But every citizen in the country must take responsibility for it. Men need to talk to men, women need to talk to women. Because some of us also hide. And there is, and I want to raise this publicly. When you have counselors that aren't properly trained, and they say to the young victim who's been raped, no, 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 you must hide your son, my baby. You can't go to the police station to tell them. And this child then takes 4 years before she reaches the epicenter of her life, which is to stand in court and to tell the man, because there was only 2 of them, to say to him, you've raped me. That was the worst moment that I have ever had in life. And I said I then would like to question the justice system, but there's processes.
Yeah. So it's the stigmatization and the culture of secrecy that perpetuates these things. We have a call. I'm Lindy in Cape Town. Thanks so much for calling. And what's your question or comment?
Hello.
Hi. Hi, I'm Lindy. We're listening.
How are you?
Well, sir, thank you.
I'm fine, ma'am. My comment is because I'm very touched with the high rate of drug users in South Africa, more especially to you, to us young people in South Africa, and which I think that the main cause of this, which I wish the government can take it up, is that number one, the main thing that causes the high rate of drugs is unemployment. Number two, it's poverty, because people think, more especially young people, think frustration of going out of matric and not getting bursary. The rags will remove everything. It means every day you must try to take this pain out. But if our government, because our government, they have tax, they have money to take care of our young people. If a person from high school, if that person can have something, get grant until that person get job, then
Lindy,
that will
Lindy,
reduce.
Sir, may I just please ask you, Lindy, you know, there's no glory or honor in poverty, but we have a whole list of luminaries who've gone through the poverty and made certain choices and decisions about wanting to be out of the environment or circumstance. So if we say that poverty, unemployment, all the other social ills you've spoken about are a conducive environment for drugs, where do we leave the responsibility of choice for young people who do engage in drugs?
Come again? I
was saying that we all have a choice to make. Ultimately, we can't always blame our circumstances. We have ample examples of people who have gone through all sorts of adversities and have managed to come out of those circumstances.
But still, there is people who cannot manage, where the government is supposed to come in to meet them halfway so that they cannot be involved in these drugs.
All right. Thanks so much,
Others,
Lindy.
they come, because, ma'am, others, we are coming from different families. We are coming from different backgrounds, different families. Others, they are rich, others, they afford, others, they coming from a family where there is no one is working.
All right, Lindy, I appreciate that. Thanks so much that your childhood traumas could perpetuate your behavior as an adult. I'll just take a reaction from all of you.
Yeah, you know, let's just be very careful because we are in democracy. We fully agree there are challenges. Young people are faced with multiple challenges of poverty, poor parenting, and so on. But, you know, this government have opened up opportunities. If, for instance, you are at school, you are guaranteed a feeding scheme of some kind per day, but also you can go to a college where you are paid for 100%. I would understand if it say some people, they are not resilient. They are not like the June 16 young people who stood up for something against all odds. We have to encourage our young people to take advantage of emerging opportunities. It's not easy, sometimes it takes too long, but they know that at least I can go to a college and acquire a school of some kind at no cost. At least there's a NSFAS. Some of the opportunities, they are not taken up because once you are into drugs, you drift away from even a possibility of grabbing opportunities. You tend to be on the run, away from families, away from the police. You are away from everything. It isolates you to the drug lords who will use you to do all the dirty work. You will rape if they want you to rape. You'll steal, you'll do all the wrong things in society.
And not to be insensitive, because we are different personalities, and people are exposed to different challenges that may be above their ability to manage or cope with. But aren't we not taking away that choice, the ability to take account for your own actions?
I think it's partly that we think drug addiction is class and race and whatever. It goes beyond. There are lots of children from middle-class families who are addicted. So it's not about what choices are in front of you. Because even when children have many choices in front of them, they choose something else. So while I agree that poverty plays a role, but I think it's something intrinsic within that particular individual, because people can be exposed to the same system, the same issues, but others come out flying and some struggle with it. So we need, as Professor was saying, we need to take each child as a standalone and deal with the issues of that particular child, so that you don't treat children all the same and you say, oh, but others are coping, why can't you cope? We need to start thinking of a child as an individual and support that child in their particular needs.
All right, let's take a call in Mpumalanga. Ridoni, hello to you.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm finally to comment regarding drugs.
We're listening, ma'am.
Some of these things is because some of parents are very busy working. And as such, we tend to forget to support our children in such a way that when a child starts buying drugs, you are not part of it. We tend to ignore them and leave them to fend for themselves for a long time. By the time you realize that the child is on drugs, it's too late. One other thing is we put most of our trust to police. When you go to the police and the police cannot assist you, or when we have secrets in the family where a child is using drugs and you cannot even tell your neighbor, or even when your neighbor sees what your child is doing, it is very difficult for a neighbor to intervene because of the secrets that we have as parents. That is the problem. We don't have a community that we used to grow up in, where a child would be afraid of a neighbor as a mother or a father when they're doing wrong things. Because he's not my child, I'm not going to comment. Or because he was not brought up by me, that is how they were brought up. It is not like that. We grew up in a community where every mother was a mother, every father was a father who was looking after every child in the community. So the community behavior is gone.
Yeah.
That is why our children are on drugs and we're not even aware. That is why they are buying drugs at school and we're not even aware. That is why we are buying them in giving them money so that they can go and use at school. Yet they are buying drugs out of that.
Ma'am
The problem
Redoni, we
lies-
appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank-
Ma'am Saray.
I think I would just want to go to Constitutional Hill and the women's jail. There's a saying there by one of the women that was in jail, and she says, the warder said, what are you busy with politics? At least these women are earning a living selling drugs. This is way back when. So it's not a now problem, you know, as if it came with 94 or 1990 or unbanning. It's a long way in relation to where values are. And when it comes to schools, in the past we used to have smoking, truancy, funny things. You know, now you must add other elements. There is prostitution in the school. There is gambling in the schools to buy the drugs. So prostitution and gambling to buy the drugs in the schools. And we need to be aware, and teachers and principals need to help, and parents need to help to find out who is selling the drugs in the schools.
All right, Professor, just the kind of dialogue that we should be having, taking from our caller, Ma'am Redoni, saying that we overcompensate for being absent parents, and there isn't even a reward that a child looks forward to because you just want to get them out of the way. Here's a bit of money, etc. Just the impact that has on the society we're trying to build.
I think those are pressures in democracy that, you know, and contradictions. As we are sitting here, we are aging. We talk about women mayors, women councillors. We want everything like our male counterpart. You see, for me, the question is, what opportunities are there for us to remain, you know, competitive like our male counterparts, but also not to fail in the critical areas of socialization and nation building, because what we are talking about really is nation building. So I think women tend to do better because they talk about these things, even if they are in leadership. If, for instance, there's a problem, let's say in an organization about rape or drug abuse, a woman will talk about it. And sometimes men can't even articulate these issues. They are embarrassed. They don't know what to say. The challenge, which I think is a question of family secrets. If you have a problem, you are sitting here, you are Cindy, who is known as this position. The challenge, I think, is how often would you talk if you are really worried about something?
And who do you speak to?
And whom do you speak to? So as women, we are often open about issues and problems. But if it's personal, I just think it becomes overwhelming. That's why it's better in a society if there are more opportunities. And also maybe taking advantage of technology where you can load something without face-to-face interaction where you are embarrassed and afraid, or even if it's anonymous, to say, I think, because in most instances you'll find that somebody was aware. I was watching this thing which happened in America recently where 49 people were killed. The woman who was married to that young man said, I knew I was going to die. I had to run away. Somebody else said it. I think it was a father and so on. So where do you go if you have this gift, which is really outside the norm, difficult, getting involved into all sorts of problems, not just getting it right? Where do you go?
Where do you go? Indeed, is a question. We'll have the contact numbers on the screen and also on our website. Let's take a caller, Pisali. We'll close with you. You're calling from Limpopo. Thanks for calling.
Hello.
Hi, we're listening, sir.
My understanding is that when I listening on the TV, always watching, that drugs is coming from other countries. Here in South Africa, especially where I live here in Limpopo, we don't know that things for Nyaupe or anything. And these things is coming with people from from outside, and the police there are involved in it because they are protecting when they come with that drugs, also because they give them money. That is the
Basali, we'll
problem.
have to give the police a right of reply. I'm afraid we're out of time. And to our esteemed panelists, thank you indeed for coming through today. We were speaking to Deputy Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services, Professor Hlengiwe Mkhize. Mam Togo Mkhwanazi Xaluva is the chairperson for the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistics Committees. And Ma'am Suraya Bibi Khan is the South African Women in Dialogue representative. And to you at home, thanks indeed for calling.